ॐ नमो भगवते वासुदेवाय। ॐ नमो भगवते वासुदेवाय। ॐ नमो भगवते वासुदेवाय। गुणात्मकानि इन्द्रियाणि भूतादि प्रभवा गुणाः मनः सर्वविकारात्मा बुद्धिर्विज्ञानरूपिणी।
Hare Krishna. The sense organs are attached to the modes of material nature, and the modes of material nature are products of the false ego. The mind is subjected to all kinds of material experiences, happiness and distress, and the intelligence is the feature of the mind's deliberation.
एतद्भगवतो रूपं स्थूलं ते व्याहृतं मया मह्यादिभिश्च अवर्णैः अष्टभिः बहिरावृतम्.
Thus, by all this, the eternal feature of the personality of Godhead is covered by gross forms, such as those of planets, which were explained to you by me.
अतः परं सूक्ष्मतमम् अव्यक्तं निर्विशेषणम् अनादिमध्यनिधनं नित्यं वाक्मनसः परम्.
Therefore, beyond this, gross manifestation is a transcendental manifestation finer than the finest form. It has no beginning, no intermediate stage, and no end. Therefore, it is beyond the limits of expression or mental speculation and is distinct from the material conception.
अमुनि भगवद्रूपे मया ते षडुवर्णिते उभे अपि न गृह्णन्ति माया सृष्टे विपश्चितः.
Neither of the above forms of the Lord, as just described unto you from the material angle of vision, is accepted by the pure devotee of the Lord who know him well.
स वाच्यवाचकतया भगवान् ब्रह्मरूपदृक् नामरूपक्रिया धत्ते सकर्म अकर्मकः परः.
He, the personality of Godhead, manifests himself in a transcendental form, being the subject of his transcendental name, quality, pastimes, entourage, and transcendental varieties. Although he is unaffected by all such activities, he appears to be so engaged.
प्रजापतीन् मनुन् देवान् ऋषीन् पितृगणान् पृथक् सिद्धचारणगन्धर्वान् विद्याद्र असुरगुह्यकान् किन्नर अप्सरसो नागान् सर्पान् किं पुरुषान् नरान् मातृ रक्षः पिशाशांशा प्रेतभूता विनायकान् कोष्माण्ड उन्माद वेतालान् यातु धानान् ग्रहानपि खगान् मृगान् पशून् वृक्षान् गिरीन् नृपा सरीसृपान् द्विविधा चतुर्विधाये अन्ये जलस्थलनभोकसः कुशला अकुशला मिश्राः कर्मणां गतयस्त्विमाः.
O king, know from me that all living entities are created by the Supreme Lord according to their past deeds. This includes Brahma and his sons like Daksha, the periodical heads like Vaivasvata Manu, the demigods like Indra, Chandra, and Varuna, the great sages like Brigu, Vyasa, and Vasistha, the inhabitants of Pitraloka and Siddhaloka, and Charanas, Gandharvas, Vidyadharas, Asuras, Yakshas, Kinnaras, and angels. The serpentines, the monkey-shaped Kimpurusas, the human beings, the inhabitants of Matraloka, the demons, Pisachas, ghost spirits, lunatics, and evil spirits, the good and evil stars, the goblins, the animals in the forest, the birds, the household animals, the reptiles, the mountains, the moving and standing living entities, the living entities born from embryos, from eggs, from perspiration, and from seeds, and all others, whereas they be in water, whether they be in water, land, or sky, in happiness, in distress, or in mixed happiness and distress. All of them, according to their past deeds, are created by the Supreme Lord.
सत्त्वं रैस्तमिति तिस्रः सुरनृनारकाः तत्रापि एकैकशो राजन् भिद्यन्ते गतयस्त्रिधा यद्यैकैकतरो न अन्याभ्यां स्वभाव उपहन्यते.
According to the different modes of material nature, the mode of goodness, the mode of passion, and the mode of darkness, there are different living creatures who are known as demigods, human beings, and hellish living entities. O king, even a particular mode of nature, being mixed with the other two, is divided into three, and thus each kind of living creature is influenced by the other modes and acquires its habits also.
स एवेदं जगद्धाता भगवान् धर्मरूपदृक् पुष्णाति स्थापयन् विश्वं तिर्यक् नरसुरादिभिः.
He, the personality of Godhead, as the maintainer of all in the universe, appears in different incarnations after establishing the creation, and thus he reclaims all kinds of conditioned souls amongst the humans, the non-humans, and the demigods.
ततः कालाग्निरुद्रात्मा यस्सृष्टम् इदमात्मनः सन्नियच्चिति तत्काले घनानीकिम् इवानिलः.
Thereafter, at the end of the millennium, the Lord himself, in the form of Rudra, the destroyer, will annihilate the complete creation as the wind displaces the clouds.
यत्तं भावेन कथितो भगवान् भगवत्तमः नेत्तं भावेन हि परं द्रष्टुमर्हन्ति सूरयः.
The great transcendentalist thus described
मैं भी जोड़े पैसे
the great transcendentalist thus described the activities of the Supreme Personality of Godhead, but the pure devotees deserve to see more glorious things in transcendence beyond these features.
नास्य कर्मणि जन्मादौ परस्यानुविधीयते कर्तृत्वप्रतिषेधार्थं माया आरोपितं हि तत्.
There is no direct engineering by the Lord for the creation and destruction of the material world. What is described in the Vedas about his direct interference is simply to counteract the idea that material nature is the creator.
अयं तु ब्रह्मणः कल्पः सविकल्प उदाहृतः विधिः साधारणो यत्र सर्गाः प्राकृतवैकृताः.
This process of creation and annihilation, described in summary herein, is the regulative principle during the duration of Brahma's one day. It is also the regulative principle in the creation of Mahat, in which the material nature is dispersed.
परिमाणं च कालस्य कल्पलक्षणविग्रहं यथा पुरस्ताद्वाक्यास्ये पाद्मं कल्पम् अतो शृणु.
O king, I shall in due course explain the measurement of time in its gross and subtle features with the specific symptoms of each. But for the present, let me explain unto you the Padma Kalpa.
सौनक उवाच यदाहनो भवान् सूता क्षत्ता भागवतोत्तमः चचार तीर्थानि भवस्त्यक्त्वा बन्धून् सुदुस्त्यजान्.
Sonaka Rishi, after hearing all about the creation, inquired from Sutta Goswami about Vidur, who, for Sutta Goswami, had previously informed him how Vidura left home, leaving aside all his relatives who were very difficult to leave.
चतुः कौशारवेस्तस्य संवादो अध्यात्मसंसृतः यद्वा स भगवान् तस्मै पृष्टस्तत्त्वम् उवाचः ब्रूहि नस्तदिदं सौम्य विदुरस्य विचेष्टितं बन्धुत्यागनिमित्तं च यतैव आगतवान् पुनः.
Sonaka Rishi said, "Let us know, please, what topics were discussed between Vidura and Maitreya, who talked on transcendental subjects, and what was inquired by Vidura and replied by Maitreya. Also, please let us know the reason for Vidura's giving up the connection of his family members and why he again came home. Please also let us know the activities of Vidura while he was in the places of pilgrimage.
सूत उवाच राज्ञा परीक्षिता पृष्टो यदवोचन्महामुनिः तद्भो अभिदास्ये शृणुत राज्ञः प्रश्नानुसारतः
Sri Suta Goswami explained, I shall now explain to you the very subjects explained by the great sage in answer to King Parikshit's inquiries. Please hear them attentively. Hare Krishna.
Thank you so much.
Hare Krishna, Mataji and Prabhuji, thank you so much for that wonderful recitation. Thank you. I offer my humble obeisances to all the devotees, and with your permission, we'll discuss the last 5 verses of chapter 10, Canto 2, and also discuss the summary. And today being the most auspicious Sri Radhashtami, I like to wish everyone happy Radhashtami, and I seek your blessings for my own purification. I would like to discuss today, and I pray it benefits me and benefits everyone today who's assembled. So let's start with the prayers. Please recite with me. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. ॐ अज्ञानतिमिरान्धस्य ज्ञानाञ्जनशलाकया चक्षुरुन्मिलितं येन तस्मै श्रीगुरुवे नमः श्रीचैतन्यमनोभीष्टं स्थापितं येन भूतले स्वयं रूपः कदा मह्यं ददाति स्वपदान्तिकम् वन्देऽहं श्रीगुरो श्रीयुतापदकमलं श्रीगुरून् वैष्णवांश्च श्रीरूपं साग्रजातं सहगणा रघुनाथान्वितं तं सजीवं साद्वैतं सावधूतं परिजनासहितं कृष्णचैतन्यदेवं श्रीराधा कृष्णपदान् सहगणा ललिता श्रीविशाखान्वितंश्च हे कृष्णा करुणा सिन्धु दीनबन्धो जगत्पते गोपेशा गोपिका कान्ता राधा कान्ता नमोऽस्तु ते तप्त काञ्चन गौराङ्गी राधे वृन्दावनेश्वरी वृषभानुसुते देवी प्रणमामि हरिप्रिये वाञ्छाकल्पतरुभ्यश्च कृपा सिन्धुभ्य एव च पतितानां पावनेभ्यो वैष्णवेभ्यो नमो नमः जय श्री कृष्ण चैतन्य प्रभु नित्यानंद श्री अद्वैत गदाधार शिवासादि गौर भक्त वृंद हरे कृष्णा कृष्ण कृष्ण हरे 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 राम 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 हरे हरे मुखं करोति वाचालं पंगुं लङ्घयते गिरिं यत्कृपातमहं वन्दे श्रीगुरुदीनतारणं परमानन्दमाधवं कृष्णचैतन्य ईश्वरम् ॐ तत् नारायणं नमस्कृत्य नरं चैव नरोत्तमं देवीं सरस्वतीं व्यासं ततो जयामुदीरयेत् नष्टप्रायेषु अभद्रेषु नित्यं भागवत सेवया भगवती उत्तमश्लोके भक्तिर्भवति नैष्टिकी सतां प्रसङ्गान् मम वीर्यसंविदो भवन्ति हृत्कर्णरसायण कथाः तज्जोषनादाशपवर्गवर्त्मनि श्रद्धारतिर्भक्तिरनुक्रमिष्यते. So we will discuss first verses 47 to 51. I'll share the Veda base. Okay. Can you see verse 47 now on the screen?
Yes, Mataji.
Thank you. परिमाणं च कालस्य कल्पलक्षणविग्रहं यथा परस्ताद् व्याख्यास्ये पाद्मं कल्पम् अथो शृणु. Translation and purport by Srila Prabhupada. Srila Prabhupada ki jai. O King, I shall in due course explain the measurement of time in its gross and subtle features with the specific symptoms of each. But for the present, let me explain unto you the Padma Kalpa. The present duration of a kalpa of Brahma is called the Varaha Kalpa or Sveta Varaha Kalpa because the incarnation of the Lord as Varaha took place during the creation of Brahma, who was born on the lotus coming out of the abdomen of Vishnu. Therefore, this Varaha Kalpa is also called Padma Kalpa. And this is testified by acharyas like Jiva Goswami as well as Vishwanath Chakravarti Thakur in pursuance of the first commentator, Swami Sridhar. So there is no contradiction between the Varaha and the Padma Kalpa of Brahma. So here we can see it is quite straightforward, right? That after the description up to verse 46, now he is saying, O king, means who is saying, Shukadev Goswami is saying to Parikshit Maharaj that I will explain to you the measurement of time. All the details about time, its subtle features, everything. But first, I want to explain you about the first day of Brahma, which is Padma Kalpa. And at the same time, here it is explained that if we are discussing Varaha Kalpa or Shwet Varaha Kalpa, because in that day of Brahma, Varaha Dev pastimes happened, both the names are same, all three names, Varaha Kalpa, Shwet Varaha Kalpa or Padma Kalpa. Kalpa means a day of Brahma. So here both Jiv Goswami and Vishwanath Chakravarti Thakur both are saying, they are testifying that this Kalpa, Padma Kalpa or Varaha Kalpa is same. There is no contradiction. Next verse. Shaunaka Uvacha यदाहनो भवान् सुत शाता भागवतोत्तमः चचार तीर्थानि भुव त्यक्त्वा बन्धून् सुदुस्त्यजान्. Shaunaka Rishi, after hearing all about the creation, inquired from Suta Goswami about Vidura. For Suta Goswami had previously informed him how Vidura left home, leaving aside all his relatives who were very difficult to leave. Now, the rishis headed by Shaunaka were more anxious to know about Vidura, who met Maitreya Rishi while traveling to the pilgrimage sites of the world. Okay, so here now we can understand that Shukdev Goswami wants to explain about the time and its features. He wants to discuss about the Padma Kalpa or Varaha Kalpa, but now the discussion is going to the outer loop, which is the discussion between Suta Goswami and Shaunakadi Rishi. Here, Shaunakadi Rishi stops Suta Goswami and says that we want to hear about the Samvad, the discussion that took place between Vidura and Maitreya. So now the topic of Padma Kalpa is set aside for the time being. It will be discussed later. But they are saying, please, can you narrate to us? They are more inquisitive to know about what Vidura and Maitreya Rishi discussed. So now, if you remember, when we were discussing Canto 1, Chapter 13, at that time there is a mention that Vidura returns back for the benefit of Dhritarashtra, who is still attached to his family affairs. And because Vidura is a well-wisher of Dhritarashtra and he wants to enlighten him about going back to Godhead and to become detached from family. So at that point, Vidura returns from his pilgrimage and he enlightens Dhritarashtra. And all this happens when the Kurukshetra war had finished. So what happens is in Canto 3, first chapter, we will see that in 14 to 16 verses, it is explained. The link is that Duryodhan at that time banishes Vidura because he insults Vidura. So Vidura returns, renounces his prosperous home. He enters forest where he first meets Uddhava and then Maitreya Rishi. And there he will hear entire Canto 3 and 4. And this happens during this time, Kurukshetra war happens. So Vidura was not there at that time. He was on pilgrimage. So Canto 3, we will know how he left. He was banished. And then Canto 1, chapter 13, we already know that he returns to enlighten Dhritarashtra. And during his trouble, now we will see here that Sutta Goswami is saying that we want to hear that discussion that took place between Vidura and Maitreya. So that is the link. And the discussion that takes place between Uddhava and Vidura is in Canto 11. So we can see that it's not in a chronology. First, Canto 3.1 will explain why Vidura left the home and went to forest. And Canto 3, chapter 13, he returns, is mentioned there. And thereafter, in this chapter at the end, it says that please, we want to know what discussion took place, which will be discussed now in Canto 3, which we are starting on Friday. So that is the entire link. And so now Shaunakadi Rishi shows interest to hear this, and they Padma Kalpa discussion is postponed for some time, right? So that is the link. Verse 49 and 50. शतुकौशारवेस्तस्य संवादोऽध्यात्मसंश्रितः यद्वा स भगवांस्तस्मै पृष्टस्तत्त्वमुवाचः गृहीणस्तदिदं सौम्य विदुरस्य विचेष्टितं बन्धुत्यागनिमित्तं च यथैव गतवान् पुनः. Shaunaka Rishi said, let us know please what topics were discussed between Vidura and Maitreya, who talked on transcendental subjects, and what was inquired by Vidura and replied by Maitreya. Also, please let us know the reason for Vidura's giving up the connection of his family members and why he again came home. Please also let us know the activities of Vidura while he was in the places of pilgrimage. Sri Suta Goswami was narrating the topics of the creation and destruction of the material world. But it appears that the rishis headed by Shaunaka were more inclined to hear of transcendental subjects, which are on a higher level than the physical. There are two classes of men, namely those who are addicted to the gross body and the material world, and others on the higher level, who are interested more in transcendental knowledge. Srimad Bhagavatam gives facility to everyone, both the materialist and the transcendentalist. By hearing Srimad Bhagavatam in the matter of the Lord's glorious activities, both the material world and the transcendental world, men can derive equal benefit. The materialists are more interested in the physical laws and how they are acting. They should know definitely that the physical activities and their wonders are all initiated by the Lord. The rose in the garden gradually takes its shape and color to become beautiful and sweet, not by a blind physical law, although it appears like that. Behind the physical law is the direction of the complete consciousness of the Supreme Lord. Otherwise, things cannot take shape so systematically. The artist draws a picture of a rose very nicely with all attention and artistic sense, yet it does not become as perfect as the real rose. If that is the real fact, how can we say that the real rose has taken its shape without intelligence behind the beauty? This sort of conclusion is due to a poor fund of knowledge. One must know from the above description of creation and annihilation that the Supreme Consciousness, being omnipresent, can take care of everything with perfect attention. That is the fact of the omnipresence of the Supreme Lord. Persons still more foolish than the gross materialists, however, claim to be transcendentalist and claim to have such supreme, all pervading consciousness, but offer no proof. Such foolish persons cannot know what is going on behind the next wall, yet they are falsely proud of possessing the cosmic, all pervading consciousness of the Supreme Person. For them also, hearing of Srimad Bhagavatam is a great help. It will open their eyes to see that simply by claiming supreme consciousness, one does not become supremely conscious. One has to prove in the physical world that he has such supreme consciousness. The rishis of Naimisharanya, however, were above the gross materialist and the false transcendentalist, and thus they were always anxious to know the real truth in transcendental matters as discussed by authorities. So this is such a nice explanation and the example of how an artist draws a rose and the real rose that grows naturally. What difference is there? And Lord can everything do everything with such perfect attention that a human cannot do. And Srimad Bhagavatam is for everyone, even the one who starts at a very neophyte level or who is even gross materialist, and even for those who are very elevated, like the Shaunakadi rishis. Bhagavatam is for everyone. One can start from whichever level they are. And thus, such nicely, all the purports are also written by Srila Prabhupada that everyone can understand. Those who are very elevated will also understand the inner meanings, and then they can decode and understand further for their benefit. And those who are still new will also get the knowledge that is necessary for them to elevate and advance. So, thus, at this point, because Shaunakadi rishis are so blessed with supreme consciousness that they want to hear the best spiritual topics. So they says we will hear about the time later, about Padma Kalpa later. First, we want to know what was discussed. That must have been very sweet and nectarian and very transcendental topics. Because both Vidura and Maitreya are so elevated pure devotees. What did they discuss? We really want to know that. So verse 51, Sutta Uvacha. Ragna parikshita prishto yad avochan mahamunihi tadvobhidha se shrunuta ragna prashnanu saratah. Sri Sutta Goswami explained, I shall now explain to you the very subjects explained by the great sage in answer to King Parikshit's inquiries. Please hear them attentively. Any question that is put forward may be answered by quoting the authority, and that satisfies the saner section. That is the system even in the law court. The best lawyer gives evidence from the past judgment of the court without taking much trouble to establish his case. This is called the parampara system, and learned authorities follow it without manufacturing rubbish interpretations. Ishvara Parama Krishna Sachidananda Vigraha Anadiradir Govinda Sarva Karanam. Let us all obey the Supreme Lord, whose hand is in everything without exception. Thus end the Bhakti Vedanta purports of the second canto, 10th chapter of the Srimad Bhagavatam, entitled Bhagavatam is the answer to all questions. End of the second canto. So here it is so beautiful. Even Srila Prabhupada, in even small few lines, he explains everything. That how in the court of law also the judge just quotes from his law book. And that is how even when we quote these verses and we give explanation, that is the best way that where we got our explanation from. Sometimes we ask, right, that when we are hearing something, oh, where is this quoted? And when we are told it is from Bhagavad Gita or from Brahma Samhita, or then we think, oh, yeah, right. So we will quickly accept it. And in the same way, in the court of law, sometimes what has happened before, the judgment is passed in a similar case. From that, the present judge might also issue a judgment, and that is also perfectly bona fide. In the same way, when the knowledge is coming from parampara system, who is giving the knowledge as it is, it is completely transparent, then it will be accepted by everyone because it is not manufactured by that single person, but it comes from the parampara system. So two things, knowledge from parampara system and knowledge quoted from the Shastras is the best way to learn. it is bona fide knowledge, and thus the second canto ends. So yes, today is the last day. We are discussing second canto, and we will now move on to chapter summary. So I'll try to share the slides here. Yeah. Okay. So Canto 2, chapter 10. Bhagavatam is answer to all the questions. Summary. Now, 10th chapter is very small and it is kind of quick revision only of what we have studied already. Shukdev Goswami is again reviving certain topics like Virat Rupa, which was already discussed in second chapter, sixth chapter in this canto, and also Virat Rupa, which we have already heard before in the second and sixth chapter, and now 10th chapter, sorry, Virat Rupa, and creation, the Sarga topic, which is already done in 2.5. So this is the quick revision chapter. It is a very small chapter, so we will go through all the verses very briefly. First 9 chapters are 9 verses are 10 characteristics of a Purana. Then 10 to 35, a big chunk there is of a Sarga, creation of the Virat Rupa, and that is the answer to Parikshit's question that he had asked in 2.8.11. Then Visarga is explained again, a big number of verses there, 36 to 47. And the last verses, which we've already discussed, where Shaunakada rishis are requesting Suta Goswami now that please tell us about Vidura Maitreya Samvad and what you were going to tell us about Padmakalpa, which is the original conversation between Parikshit Maharaj and Shukdev Goswami, and the time's characteristics, we will hear that later. So that's how the third canto will start, with the discussion between Vidura Maitreya Samvad, and first he will meet Uddhava. So all that will, third canto is very, very sweet, very nectarian, with amazing pastimes and many, many wonderful topics, and it's vast. It is 33 chapters. We really look forward to that. And so this chapter, the first 2 verses are the 10 topics of Srimad Bhagavatam. Shri Shuka Uvacha Atra Sargo Visargascha Sthanam Poshanamutayah Manvantareshanukatha Nirodho Muktirashrayah. So here we know that in the first 2 verses, the 10 topics of Bhagavatam are mentioned. And the second verse says that these 9 topics, they are spoken so that the 10th topic, Ashraya, can be understood properly. So just when it is raining, umbrella gives shelter. Thus, these 9 topics are under the umbrella of the 10th topic, which is Ashraya Tattva, and that is the ultimate conclusion of Bhagavatam. And as we all know that all the topics come in all the cantos, but some particular topic is predominantly present. That is why we say that, okay, Canto 2, Canto 3, Chapter 5 to 11 is Sarga, Canto 3, Chapter 12 to 5.15, 5th Canto 15 chapter is Visarga, like that, because those topics are more in those cantos, and along with that, other topics are also there. So the reason for description of all the other 9 topics, as we said, is to take ashraya of Krishna. Dashamasya vishuddhyartham navanam iha lakshanam varnayanti mahatmana shrutenarthena chanjasa. So 3 to 7 are the definitions of the 10 topics. So the first topic is Sarga, that is the creation. The Sarga is the primary creation carried out by Mahavishnu, the elementary creation of 16 items of matter, and creation up to the stage of ingredients of manifestation of the universe is Sarga. Then Visarga. Visarga is the secondary creation done by Brahma through Prajapatis, Manus, sages, his sons, Brahma. He fills the universe with the population. That is Visarga. Sthanam. Sthanam is comes in the 5th canto, chapter 16 to 27. It is the positioning of different living beings in relevant positions in different planets. For example, Devtas, human beings, Vidyadhar, Kim Purusha, Kinnara, Gandharva, Tapasvis, Nagaloka. So there are 14 planetary systems created from Brahmaloka down to Pataloka. And this is to position different living beings in those planets. So that is Sthanam, Canto 5. Poshanam. Poshanam is maintenance and protection. Supreme Lord, he protects, even though devotees are imperfect. For example, Ajamil discussion will come. Indra, Chitraketu, they all made mistakes, but Lord protects. Even though someone deviates from proper consciousness, they will come back with the guidance and protection of the Lord. So that is Poshanam, and that is Canto 6. Manvantara, Canto 8, it will be the reign of Manus. Manus are the progenitors of mankind, and they are created by Brahma, so they populate the entire universe. Now there are 14 Manus, they rule the Bhumandala in one day of Brahma. So here we can see the chart that the first 50 years of Brahma is called first Prarabdha, and the second part of Brahma's 50 years of his life is second Prarabdha, right? And right now we are 6 Manvantras have already taken place in our Kalpa, the day of Brahma, and 7th Manu is right now ruling, and he is called Vaivashvata Manu. So the past 6 Manus, the current Manu, and future 7 Manus, all their pastimes are discussed in Srimad Bhagavatam. So Srimad Bhagavatam discusses future also. So we can see like there are 1,000 Divya Yugas in one day of Brahma. One Divya Yuga is made of 4 Yugas, as we all know, Satya, Treta, Dwapar, and Kali Yuga. And there are 14 Manus for these 1,000 Divya Yugas, which means that one Manu will approximately rule 71.42 Divya Yuga. Each they will rule, and thus there are 14 Manus. So all this is this will come in Canto 8. Then after Canto Manvantara, it is Utaya. Utaya, Uti, it means inclination. It is like impetus for any activity. So in this Canto 7, there is a pastime of Prahlad Maharaj and Hiranyakashipu. So the auspicious inclination, there we will learn from Prahlad Maharaj example that gives rise to bhakti. But when there is inauspicious inclination or uti, that is the example of Hiranyakashipu, who gives rise to asuric tendency. And at the end of Canto 7, Varnashram system is also discussed, which is of mixed inclination, auspicious and inauspicious both. So thereafter, Ishanu Katha. Ishanu Katha is the science of God, and ninth canto is filled with it. Descriptions of Lord and his devotees. Nirodha will be, it is winding up or annihilation or pralaya of material universe. And we had discussed there are 4 types of pralaya. Nitya pralaya, which is constant destruction, like a flower will fade tomorrow, or our body is slowly degenerating, and we will all age, old age and disease will happen, and finally death. Then Naimittika Pralaya. It happens at the end of day of Brahma, where not all the planets, but except the top 3 planets, other planets will go back into Garbhodakshai Vishnu. So that is Naimittika Pralaya. Prakritik Pralaya happens at the end of Brahma's life, where everything, all the 14 planetary system, everything goes back into Mahavishnu's body this time, not Garbhodakshai Vishnu. And that is when Mahavishnu will inhale. That is complete annihilation. And the 4th one is Atyantika Pralaya. That is at individual level. When individual's false ego is destroyed, then he will liberate, go back to spiritual world. And Mukti is liberation. That these topics are we will learn through Uddhav Gita in Canto 11, and thereafter Ashraya, supreme reservoir, is taking shelter of Krishna, and his pastimes are elaborately discussed in Canto 10. So we have covered up to 7 verses so far. Next verse 8 to 9 of this chapter. In these two verses, Supreme Lord or Paramatma is the shelter of all the universes is explained. He is the shelter of Adhyatmika, which is the subtle senses, Adi Deva, sense devtas, and Adi Bhautika, which is gross senses. And in fifth chapter of this canto, we also learned the manifestation of Virat Rupa and 23 elements. All this was discussed, and there is the entire chart here. So we'll not go there again here. But the main point to understand in these two verses is that since Krishna says in Bhagavad Gita that he pervades the entire world just by his little amsa, so it should be understood that Krishna is the shelter of Paramatma, who is the shelter of all the jivas. Thus, Krishna is the supreme ashraya that is established through these verses. Thereafter, the next verse is 10 to 35. This entire from 10 to 35 is a description of Sarga, creation of Virat Roop. And this is the answer to Parikshit's question in 2.8.11. So Shukdev Goswami briefly discusses, he gives the summary topic of Sarga after giving the definition of 10 topics. And in the 10th verse, he explains that Mahavishnu enters each universe as Garbhodakshai Vishnu, and he found it empty. Then he filled it up with his own perspiration and he lie down in that Garbhodaka ocean. Verse 11 says that Vishnu, all the three Vishnus are called Narayan, and the Supreme Person is not impersonal and therefore is distinctively a Nara, a person. Therefore, the transcendental water created from the Supreme Nara is called as Nara. And because he lies down on that water, he is known as Narayan. Then verse 12 discusses that the features of universe, they are non-different to Lord Narayan. They are Dravya, Kala, and Swabhava. Dravya means earth, water, fire, air, ether. Jiva is the living beings. Kala is the time. Karma is that of the jivas. Karma, their activities. Swabhava of all the jivas. All this is reawakened at the beginning of creation, and its transformation manifested 23 elements. And these are the ingredients. 13th verse is about Lord. He manifested living beings through his external energy. 14th verse explains that the Lord divided controlling devtas, controlled entities, their subtle senses, and their body. All the created beings, their senses, and everything are then put into action. So basically, this chart here, all that is discussed. And 15th and 16th verse explains that the Lord manifested universal form, the senses became active, and following after the action of Sutra Tattva, it becomes inactive when Sutra becomes okay, fine. So here it is. We can see here, right? Sutra Tattva and Mahat Tattva in Sattva and Ahankar. So verse 15 and 16 basically explains Mahat Tattva, Sutra Tattva, and Ahankar. So while Pradhana transforms into Mahat Tattva, see here Pradhana will transform into Mahat Tattva, right? This step, where there is two then possibilities. When Mahat Tattva is in Sattva, then Sattva mode, when Sattva mode is prominent, then Pradhana transforms into Mahat Tattva. And when Rajoguna is prominent, it becomes Sutra Tattva. And when Tamogun becomes prominent, it becomes Ahankar. So basically, goodness, passion, and ignorance. Goodness transforms into Mahat Tattva, passion into Sutra Tattva, and ignorance into Ahankar. That's what is verse 15 and 16. And thereafter, we have seen the verses 17 to 30. Right, 17 to 30, these verses there, this is the creation procedure. And here we had seen the whole idea to understand how the Virat Rupa's desire is basically the aggregate of desire of all the jivas. So when Virat Rup desires to do something, then gross organ is manifested. Subtle organ is manifested. There is a sense devta who is a controlling deity for that activity. And then there is tanmatra, like an object. we had taken the example from here that, for example, you want to see, then you need first of all, there is a desire to see, right? Then what happens? Then there is Akshini, eyes, that is our gross organ. Subtle organ is Chakshu. The sense devta that's controlling it is Surya Dev. You need light. Otherwise, even if you have perfect eyes and subtle eyes, Chakshu, you can't see. So there needs to be light, electricity, light, Surya Devta, and the form. For example, I'm seeing an earthen pot, then it is made up of earth matter, and that pot has a form. So this is how all the verses up to verse 30 we can understand just by this one chart from Bhagavata Subodhini. The desire could be to hear, the desire could be to feel the touch, to see, to taste. The desire is to smell something, to speak. All these desires are there to change the body, to consume food, to consume drink. Any of this, we can understand that what are the gross sense organ for that? What is the subtle sense organ? Who is the Devta controlling it? And what is the sense object and gross element? So that is up to verse 30. 31 verse is creation of dhatus and prana. So there are 7 dhatus, which is the thin layer on the skin itself, the flesh, the blood, fat, marrow, and bone. And it's made up of earth, water, and fire. These are the material elements. And 7th dhatu also, and there is prana, creation of dhatus and prana. Prana is made of sky, water, and air. And in second canto, first and second chapter, we had seen the description of Virat Rupa. That time the purpose was that he was the object of meditation or dhanashraya of Ashtanga Yogi, who still has some material desires. Thereafter, the Virat Rupa was discussed in 2.6, and that time it was there to prove that the Lord is cause of all the causes. And in this chapter, Virat Rup description comes, and the purpose is to show that the Lord's desire is the cause of all the senses and sensual functions of all the living beings, like here, right? All the senses and sensual function, who is the cause behind it? The Virat Rupa, the Lord's desire. So Virat Rup is, or universal form, is the aggregate of all the living beings, and all the senses of Virat Rup is the source of senses of all the living beings. Thereafter, verse number 32 discusses about the senses. They gravitate to sense object. The sense objects appear attractive because of false ego, and the mind sustains all the changes. And intelligence consists the power of discrimination. This is how all the elements function. And verse 33, Shukdev Goswami says that thus I have explained to you about the gross Virat Rupa of the Lord. There, that discussion ends. And then verse 34 explains that spiritual forms, Leela Avtaras of the Lord, they were discussed. If you remember in the first canto, third chapter, Leela Avtaras were discussed. And there is a verse, Ete Shamsha Kalapumsa, Krishna is the source of all the forms. So here again in verse 34 and 35, the question may arise that what about, you have explained spiritual forms of the Lord which are Leela Avtaras. So what is Virat Rupa? Is that a spiritual form? And the answer was given in 1.3.32 and 33. Same answer is repeated here in 34 and 35 verses. That human beings, they have gross physical form, and they have gross subtle form, and they have a soul, right? We have gross body, subtle body, and soul. In the same way, material universe is considered Lord's material form, which comprises of gross material form, which is this 14 planetary system, mountains, rivers, etc. And behind this gross material form of the Lord, there is a subtle material form which is invisible. And beyond that is the Lord himself, the spiritual form of the Lord in Goloka Vrindavan, right? Krishna, Bhagwan himself. So The wise person, he will understand that this gross material form and subtle form of the Lord as universe belongs to the Lord. And there is Paramatma. Yes, this is right. But at the end, and we know the spiritual personality about this is Garbhodakshai Vishnu. Just like we have gross and subtle material form about the soul. So, a sincere and intelligent devotee does not accept both gross and subtle material form of Lord as permanent because it is composed of matter, and thus he surrenders to the Supreme Lord Krishna, who is Shyam Sundar, basically. So, a devotee is interested in Lord Shyam Sundar Krishna's worship, but not the worship of Virat Rupa, like that of the yogi we saw earlier, whose Dhanashraya is Virat Rupa because he still had material desires. But we directly approach Krishna knowing the truth that beyond all these comes from Krishna himself. So why not directly worship Krishna and not the Virat Rupa form? And thereafter, 36 to 47 Visarga is explained, right? Lord accepted the form of Brahma, and then he does the secondary creation. He creates species like Manus, Devtas, and the modes they permute to give many species. And Lord maintains in the form of Vishnu, and he destroys in the form of Shiva. Most people thus see him as creator, but pure devotees see beyond. And Lord doesn't take part directly in creation, maintenance, and destruction. And Sarga at beginning of Brahma's life, and Visarga is at the beginning of Brahma's day. So basically, that is how the chapter ends here. And it's very much 10 chapter. As I said, it's small. It is repetition. It's a quick revision. And we have already discussed verses 47 to 51, whereby that Shruta Goswami was about to describe Padmakalpa and the measurements of time as discussed by Shukdev Goswami, but the Shaunakadi rishis are saying that no, we want to hear about the Vidura and Maitreya Samvad, so please tell us that first. So that's how this chapter ends. And Sutta Goswami will now reply by narrating the same conversation between Shukdev Goswami and Parikshit Maharaj, which he had heard, that was about Maitreya and Vidura Samvad. So that will be our Canto 3. So thank you so much. That's how this chapter ends. It has Canto 2, it has Ashtanga Yoga, Virat Rupa, Sarga, Visarga, and yes, there is this amazing Chatushloki as well in second canto that we learned together. Thank you so much for your patience, participation, and giving me chance of purification to discuss Krishna Katha. And before we complete today, it is very auspicious day, and thus I have actually since a long time I have prepared. It's one of my favorite. Many verses are my favorite here. Radharani's verses over a few years. I have been putting them together. There are still many more in other slides, lots and lots of them. But obviously, due to the time restriction and the topic is such that I'm not qualified to discuss Srimati Radharani's about Srimati Radharani. But for our purification, we can always discuss what we have already heard from Parampara, from the transparent parampara, so we can always repeat that. So today being the most auspicious Radhashtami, let's for our purification discuss few verses. We still have 6 minutes, which is great. I tried to do the summary and the verses as possibly, without missing anything, as quick, so we have some time left. So Srimati Radharani's position. Srimati Radharani, Lord Krishna is the possessor of unlimited energies. He is Purna Shaktiman. And Srimati Radharani is the personification of the essential portion of Krishna's spiritual energy, which is called the Ladini Shakti. There is no difference between Radha and Krishna. Just as the energetic person and the energy are inseparable and exist together as one, Radha and Krishna are one. But they manifest in two forms for loving pastimes as revealed in the following verse. राधा कृष्ण एक आत्मा दुई देहधारी अन्योन्य विलासे रस आस्वादनकारी. Srimati Radharani is the repository of all good qualities and the crest jewel among Krishna's consorts. Sarvaguna Kani Krishna Kanta Shiromani. Her mind, senses, and body are steeped in love for Krishna, Krishna Prema Bhavita. She is Krishna's own energy and helps him in his pastimes. She is the topmost devotee and worshipper of Krishna. Sri Chaitanya Charitamrita discusses the glory of Sri Radha. So in Chaitanya Charitamrita, Madhya Leela, there is beautiful verse. Devi Krishna Mai Prokta Radhika Paradevata Sarva Lakshmi Mai Sarva Kanti Sammohini Param. The transcendental goddess Srimati Radharani is the direct counterpart of Lord Sri Krishna. She is the central figure for all the goddesses of fortune. She possesses all the attraction to attract the all attractive personality of Godhead. She is the primeval eternal potency of the Lord. Srimati Radharani is the topmost worshipper of Lord Krishna. She embodies the highest devotion to him, and through her blessings, devotees can develop their love and devotion towards Krishna. Anyaradhito nunam bhagavan haririshvaraha yanno vihaya govinda prito yam anayadraha. The gopis said, so this is during Rasalila, when the Rasalila happens. At that time, after some time, Lord Krishna leaves the Rasalila and goes. And all the gopis are wondering what happened. They are looking for Krishna and they go behind Krishna, following his footsteps, his lotus footprints. And then next to his footprints, they see another set of footprints, and that's when they recite this verse, and this establishes the supremacy of Radharani amongst all the gopis, because gopis say that these footprints must be of that particular special gopi who has worshipped the Lord the most in the most perfect way. That is why Krishna is with that gopi. So the gopi said, certainly this particular gopi, Srimati Radharani, has perfectly worshipped the all-powerful personality of Godhead Govinda. Since he was so pleased with her that he abandoned the rest of us and brought her to a secluded place. And Radharani is Krishnamai, which means her complete existence is filled with Krishna. Her body, mind, words, intelligence, everything else are dedicated to Krishna's service and pleasure. She is the perfect example and epitome of Krishna consciousness. Bhajami Radham Arvinda Netram Smarami Radham Madhurasmitasyam Vadami Radham Karuna Bharadram Tato Mamanyasti Gatirna Kapi. This shloka is from Sri Stavavali by Srila Raghunath Das Goswami. It says, I worship Radha who has lotus eyes. I remember Radha who has a sweet smile. And I speak of Radha who is melted with compassion. There is nothing else for me. She is my life and soul. And there is this very beautiful verse where there is no mention of Krishna. The whole verse is Radha, 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 but actually it is about Krishna. It is the description of Krishna. Radha Radhita Radesha Radhika Prana Vallabha Radha Ramana Vande Tvam Radhika Prema Nirjita. Radha Aradhita, one who is worshipped by Radha. So that is Krishna. Radhesha, who is the master of Radharani, that is Krishna. Radhika Prana Vallabha, who is life and soul of Radharani, that is Krishna. Radha Ramana, one who gives pleasure to Krishna, that Radharani, one and Krishna who gives pleasure to Radha, Radha Ramana. Vande Tvam Radhika Prema Nirjita. So, O Lord Krishna, O Master of Srimati Radharani, Radha intently worships you and cherishes you, considering you more dear to her than her own life breath. O Enjoyer of Srimati Radharani, you become conquered by the exalted pure love of Radha. I offer respectful obeisances unto you. And this verse is from Krishna Leela Stava by Srila Sanatan Goswami. So this verse is explanation of Krishna, but without his name, because Radha and Krishna are non-different, and Radharani is filled with Krishna. All her activities, all her words, everything is about Krishna. So like that, there are many verses. There is one more verse here. So Govinda Nandini Radha Govinda Mohini Govinda Sarvasva Sarvakanta Shiromani. Radha is one who gives pleasure to Govinda, and she is also the enchantress of Govinda. She is the be all and end all of Govinda and Chris jewel of all his consorts. So, like that, we can see here that whatever devotion any devotee has for Krishna is only by the blessing of the supreme goddess of devotion, Srimati Radharani. And on the day of Radhashmi, we humbly beg for her blessings to develop devotion to Krishna and express our deep gratitude to her for mercifully giving us the rare opportunity to serve Krishna in some way. Because if we really want to love Krishna, we need mercy of Srimati Radharani, who is extremely merciful. She wants everyone. If Radharani will request Krishna, please take this devotee, then Krishna will definitely take us to his lotus feet. So we have to actually beg Radharani. And Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, we need his shelter as well, who is none other than Radha and Srimati Radharani and Krishna both. So, following in the footsteps of Chaitanya Mahaprabhu and taking his guidance and taking guidance of all the acharyas, begging Srimati Radharani to accept us and to take us and give us the shelter. Also, so that is how with that prayer we can end this call today, and really in that consciousness and mood pray to Radharani to accept us, give us service, and let us all purify our hearts of many anarthas. So then Krishna will sit there with the mercy of Radharani. So I would like to end here, dear devotees. If you have anything to add and your reflections or any mistakes I made, please go ahead. Vanchakalpatarubhyascha kripa sindhubhyeva cha patitanam pavnebhyo vaishnavebhyo namo namah. Granthrat Srimad Bhagavatam ki jai, Srila Prabhupada ki jai.
Thank you, Mataji, for
Thank you
lovely
very much,
class.
Mataji.
Thank you so much.
Thank you, Mataji. Wonderful class.
Thank you,
Hare
Mataji.
Mataji,
Wonderful
Hare
class.
Krishna.
Thank you. Hare
Krishna.
Krishna.
Lovely class.
Hare Krishna.
Thank you very much.